Now, there's something else that Marx brings in here. He says the activity of labor does not just produce commodities, but also turns itself and the worker into a commodity. The worker into a commodity. Now, we want to look at the significance of this claim, which I pointed out next time, is a claim that Marx will abandon in his mature writings, Das Kapital, and the works that immediately precede it. He will not regard the laborer as being a commodity. Laborers are not bought and sold, at least not in terms of the distinctive relation of capital and labor. One can have workers who are commodities. Under what conditions does one have workers as commodities? Slavery, right? And slavery can be used by individuals or enterprises that are producing for a market, right? Just as producers for a market could use people in all sorts of forms of bondage, right? History of Georgia allows us to see how that is possible. We can think of it, how it occurred in other respects in terms of various forms of slave labor that were utilized by the Nazi regime throughout World War II. And to some degree, one could say the same thing regarding all of the vast construction projects performed by the inmates of the gulags in the Soviet Union, and similar situations in China, where in effect one has slavery reintroduced in different forms. But here we're not talking about slavery, properly speaking. And Marx recognizes this really, and if you think about the implications of what he discusses, because there is a market relation between the worker and the employer. It takes place in terms of a kind of commodity exchange. And commodities do not participate in commodity exchanges except as objects of exchange, not as subjects of exchange. But anyway, this is a very important point that Marx here makes of considering the worker as a commodity. And that goes together with considering the activity of the worker as being a commodity, and in effect, all the activity of the worker as being a commodity. Or in other words, what happens to the activity of the worker in its relationship to its employer is going to, in effect, be determinative for everything concerning the activity of the employer, as opposed to being something that pertains to a rather restricted aspect of the life of that individual.